Hello and welcome back to the channel. For this week's video, I wanted to take a look at one of the really lesser used actions in Lancer, and that is going to be self-destruct. Self-destruct allows you as a quick action to initiate the overload sequence on your mech's reactor. At the end of one of your next 3 turns, your choice, your mech explodes, dealing 46 explosive damage in a burst too. And characters do get an agility save to take half, but that's still quite a bit of damage in a rather large area. Of course, this will also kill anyone caught inside, including you as the pilot, so you'll probably also want to eject, which is another quick action and launches you 6 spaces away from your mech, conveniently out of the range of the self-destruct explosion. Now, normally this is going to be a last-ditch effort, even if you do manage to survive the explosion and whatever remains of the combat you're in, you will be without a mech for the remainder of your mission, until you and your party go back to base to do a full repair. You're just going to be running around on foot, and a lone pilot in a Lancer battlefield is not long for this world. However, there is one mech in the game which has a unique relationship with death, and that is the Horus Lich, which of course has the immortal trait, meaning once per scene, after it's been destroyed, it can reconstitute itself back to life with one structure, one stress, and even its pilot intact if the pilot were to die in the interim. So I want to take a look at the Legend system and see what we can do to help bolster this admittedly stupid plan and see how good we can be at kamikaze into enemy lines and nuking ourselves to destroy our opponents. So first we have to go through what things we want to consider in making this build. First and foremost, while the immortal does return you back to life, it returns you at the location of your soul vessel, which you have to put down at the start of your turn, and you come back with only one structure and one stress, which is problematic for the Lich because they only have 4 HP and 3 heat capacity, meaning if someone so much as sneezes in their general direction, after they explode and come back to life, they'll die again with no recourse, seeing as immortal is a once-a-seen ability. Because of this, we'll want 2 things. One, we want as much speed as possible so that we can cover more ground from our soul vessel to our point of detonation. And 2, we want to maximize our dodge and survivability so that nobody can hit us even after we come out of our soul vessel. Lucky for us, the Lich actually has 12 E-defense, which is the highest in the game, meaning that generally we're only concerned with boosting up our evasion. The next thing to consider is that there is going to be a little bit of lag time between when we initiate our self-destruct to when we actually explode, seeing as while we can initiate a quick action, the earliest we can explode at the start is the end of our next turn. Now, because of the Lancer Popcorn Initiative and how it works, that can actually be a pretty short amount of time, since you can go at the end of the first round, initiate your self-destruct, and then go first on the next round, meaning there's a very short amount of time for enemies to react. But especially if you're fighting large amounts of enemies, there is going to be some ability for your opponents to recognize that you've initiated self-destruct and flee your explosion radius. While maximizing our speed, as for the previous consideration, will help us catch up with fleeing enemies, we can also grapple them, which will hold them in place, and more importantly, hold them next to us so that even if they want to escape, they're going to have a much harder time doing so, and increase our odds of catching as many enemies as we can in our explosion. And finally, while self-destruct is the most surefire way for us to explode, it is not the only way, because if we overheat and we roll a 1 while our structure is 1 or less, our mech suffers an irreversible reactor meltdown at the end of our next turn. Seeing as after our Lich brings us back to life, we're left at 1 reactor. This actually works out pretty well, meaning if we can overheat our extremely low 3 heat capacity, we can go into an irreversible meltdown without the need to spend that quick action. So, having said all that, let's go into what I might pick up if I want to try and make this build actually work out. Starting with our first consideration of speed and survivability, I think an obvious pickup is going to be the flicker field projector. As this mech, we're going to want to be in almost constant motion, meaning that the flicker field projector is going to be giving us basically an indefinite stack of invisibility. Additionally, picking up Skirmisher 1 as a talent is actually quite useful, since if we initiate self-destruct, run in, and then boost to run a little farther, we haven't actually attacked or forced another character to make a save, meaning that we gain soft cover through the enemy's turn up until we are capable of self-destructing. And of course, there is the obvious choice of putting our haste points into agility, which gives us +1 evasion for every point we put in, as well as +1 speed for every 2 points we put in. And as a somewhat out of left field choice, we have the Blackbeard, which at license level 3 grants us reinforced cabling, allowing us once a turn to move up to our speed for free, essentially doubling the amount of free movement that we get every round. This is incredibly valuable, especially on a mech and a strategy that wants us to move as far as we can. However, there is another reason to take Blackbeard licenses, and that's for a second consideration, which is grappling. Straight away at license level 1, we get synthetic muscle netting, making us count as a larger character in grappling and real, and giving us a small advantage in those scenarios. Additionally, picking up all 3 of our Blackbeard licenses grants us an IPS and core bonus, with which we can pick up Fumble and Frame. This increases our mech size by another increment, and prevents being knocked prone, pulled, or knocked back by smaller characters, meaning we can't be crowd controlled to nullify our exploding death blow strategy. Additionally, there is a secret secondary benefit to increasing your mech size, which is that the size of a burst from your mech also increases. A burst 2 area on a size 1 mech covers 19 squares including the mech itself, which is a respectable number of squares, but if you center it on a size 2 mech, all of a sudden your burst 2 covers the full 30 squares, an increase of almost 60% in affected area. And finally, for a third consideration, I would just like to point to the overcharge action, which at its maximum heat capacity gives us 1d6 plus 4 heat, more than enough to overheat our flimsy 3 heat capacity for the Lich. This will almost certainly trigger an irreversible meltdown, especially if we've already used our self-destruct package previously and we're left at 1 reactor, meaning that instead of having to spend an action to initiate the self-destruct, we actually can just overcharge and gain an upgrade instead, and basically get the same effect. So that's all for this week's video. This is obviously an incredibly impractical build. While you are pretty likely to kill a couple enemy mechs with this, it is just as likely that you're going to get caught out of position or a stiff breeze will come your way and you'll be left without a mech after your magnificent self-destruct sequence. However, it is very funny to be able to, once every encounter, cannonball into enemy lines and deal 46 damage in a burst to area, which is a better damage number and area than any weapon in the entire game. Of course, you'll be left with a mech that literally has less health than you would just standing out on the battlefield. But if you want to ride the line between life and death harder and more aggressively than any other mode in the game, this is certainly the mech for you. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video and the absurdity of this week's build. I'm not sure what I'll be doing for next time, but I hope you'll join me when it happens. And most importantly, I hope you'll have a lovely day.